Welcome to the Birds and the Bees podcast. This is Braxton Dutson.
That's the key. People aren't talking about it.
Everybody needs to know that porn is not a documentary.
It's not like if we don't talk to kids about sex and sexuality, they're not going to hear about it. They're just not going to hear about it from us.
They have tons of questions, they just don't know how to ask them.
All you have to do is be one chapter ahead. You don't have to know everything. Just one chapter ahead of wherever your child is.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Birds and Bees podcast. This is episode 11 with Lyn Christian. I'm really excited about this episode, specifically for a couple reasons. I have never done an interactive episode before. It's specifically geared towards you finding the best way that you can use your time for what your priorities are. So in this episode, we actually have a couple different activities, and I have a couple of printouts that you can print off if you're at home. We also explain a way to do it if you just have a piece of paper and a pen in front of you. But Lyn does a great job at explaining how to go about doing the exercise and really driving home how we can make our priorities the priorities versus knowing what our priorities are and then having everyone dictate what we're going to do throughout the day or throughout the week until we can find that spare time to do what we want to do. A lot of people find this in their family life or in hobbies and other things that they would like to do, but work takes over or someone else's needs. And we cover a lot of great ways to start identifying how you're going to get things done faster and make the priorities your priorities and make them what you're actually doing. Lyn does a great job at covering all these in this first episode, so I'm really excited to bring this to you. It was great interviewing her. She's got a lot of information, so be prepared for some good information on how to start this off. This is going to be a two-part episode, mostly because I couldn't put all of it into one 1 hour segment. We actually are jumping from two pieces. We've got Making Priorities Your Priorities, which is this episode, and then the next one, which I'm going to release in 1 week. Instead of the bi-weekly, these go hand in hand together, so I'm going to do a weekly release of these two. So episode 2 will be out next week, and that will be Conversational IQ, so stay tuned for that one, and it's real exciting as well. And if you like this episode, please consider leaving a review. That really helps us get to more and more people. I'm also posting reviews that people leave on iTunes, on our Facebook page, and on our Twitter account. Again, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 11, Making Your Priorities the Priorities with Lyn Christian. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to Birds and Bees podcast. Today I've got a real special treat for all of y'all. I'm with Lyn Christian, and she is a coach. And would you say you're a life coach, or how do you represent
How do I
yourself?
distinguish myself? Yes. So I am a coach who specializes in life coaching, business strategies, and career reinvention.
Wow.
And I have a background with neuroscience as an emphasis in how we work toward peak performance or to do the shifts that people desire when they come into our practice.
Oh, nice. So you're looking for any type of shifts, like people can come in and say, hey, I want to change the way that I plan or change the way that I do this event.
Right. Anytime they're looking to go to the next level in their performance, be it in a small business, leadership, again, career reinvention, a lot of people want to recalibrate what they're doing and they want to move from something that is leaving them feeling every day like they're running on a treadmill to doing something that really engages passion and strength and purpose and a market need. So and there are life strategies in this because I typically work with entrepreneurs or the free agent thinker who thinks outside the box. So my clients tend to be very innovative and creative. They reach from the hair and beauty industry into technology and web development, into app development. They go into performers, elite athletes. There's just a whole broad swatch of individuals that are attracted to Soul Salt.
Nice. Yeah, and Soul Salt is your company. And full disclosure, I've been working with Soul Salt. This is kind of a reason that I know Lyn. And I've been doing your Today and Not Today program.
Yes, the Be Focused online coaching And if you're a do-it-yourselfer, we can turn it into an online course like you have been doing. But that's one of our offerings because we believe that at Soul Salt, we work with people to become the most strong, true, and focused version of themselves.
Which it's totally been doing for me. I've loved the planning. Like I was a person that didn't do any planning, and now I'm into planning, and now I'm like totally making strides in what's important for me, what my priorities are, and what the real priorities are.
That's really the key there is you can be really talented. You can have a gazillion great ideas. However, if you can't execute on those, if you instead of going around and just making random marks all over the world, if you can't have a mark that has a punch, that has an impact, you leave feeling less satisfied, less competent. And so what I've focused on is assisting people to manage where they focus, to look at what are the priorities, to understand how do I distinguish what has the greatest amount of value in my life. Because at any given moment, we could have 100 different things vying for our attention, and they all seem legitimate, and we may have an emotional and a psychological connection to them, maybe even a spiritual yearning for them. But the truth is we are human. We live on this earth that's somewhat governed by gravity and time and some dimensions that require that we do need to make choices. And so assisting people to know where to focus instead of time manage, and where to choose and where to discern where to choose and how to stay consistent, those are the constructs that we put into this course. And of course, I created the course because I am a great example of having entrepreneurial ADD, and I really needed to get my act together. And so I've hacked my own focus management system. But for me, even more important is I've had people come to me and say, Lyn, I really suck at scheduling, or I don't like who I am when I finish a day and the things that I've accomplished didn't have any merit in my life. And other people have come in and said, it's really painful to run really hard every day and do things for other people, but never feel like I accomplish anything.
Oh, yeah.
And a gentleman in Florida contacted me and he said, Lyn, I want to be part of this program because I want to do something significant with my life and I'm not getting to it. So once they entered and they joined this program, we found that one woman said, I actually look in the mirror and I like myself now because I can manage myself. She said at one point, I can't manage myself out of a paper bag. She says, now I can manage my day. I'm focused on my children, my work, and a few projects that mean something to me. And I like looking at myself in the mirror now. And another person, the gentleman that said, I want to do something significant. He's taking steps and he says, it feels like I'm on my way to that. Other people have told us I feel more productive. I'm getting my priorities done. I'm also having peace of mind because I can say no with confidence to a boatload of things that before I was tempted to think I had to do, the could, should, and ought to do's. So even more importantly, over the years, I've used this with 80% of my clients, and I've been a coach full-time since 2004, part-time since 1998. And I have all these certifications, a master certification from the International Coach Federation, Franklin Covey coaching certification. I've been coached and mentored by Marshall Goldsmith, the premier executive coach. I have M-braining, multiple brain integration from Australia. I went to Australia to learn how to do that sort of coaching, and I'm currently learning from organizational anthropologist and author of Conversational Intelligence, Judith E. Glasser, and learning, again, more neuroscience. So when you think about it, I've had this long history of learning, growing, supporting people. 80% of my clients need this focus management tool or something around focus management. And I think that's one of the reasons that you wanted to talk today.
That's a huge reason I want to talk today. The main, as I've worked with you, again, it's kind of one of the reasons that I've got Birds and Bees podcast off of the ground. Because like you were saying, one of the things that would come up is that there was always someone else vying for my attention or my need. And so I'm like, I'm going to start this podcast. I'm going to do this. And it took months and months and months. And I would do little things here and there. And then if I had extra time, which I normally didn't because extra time was for someone else, I would end up not using it for the Birds and Bees podcast until I started shifting my priorities to what do I want to do and what impact do I want to have. And the Birds and Bees podcast is where one of my passions is.
Right. So by being able to manage your focus and say no to certain things, you were able to bring forward the most important thing.
Yeah, very much so. And it's still a process. I still find myself being like, oh, I've got to finish this, this, and this. And then Birds and Bees is on the back burner again. And, the next goal is to be able to make this a weekly podcast, because right now it's bi-weekly.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I wanted to bring you on the show is because I think as parents and as family members and partners, we tend to have things that are pulling us in many different directions. We've got church responsibilities, or you've got community responsibilities, father, school,
work,
kids,
partner,
everything along those lines. Yes,
friend, neighbor.
And a lot of people are looking for, from what I see, especially as clients come in to see me, is that they are vying for money or something. They're like, okay, soon we can get to the good life. Mm-hmm. And my priorities will then be my priorities. And I'm seeing that that's not necessarily the case. And so I wanted to bring you on to have us talk a little bit about how to make our priorities and getting to this conversational IQ. And this is going to be a 2-part episode. I mean, we're going to be going through so much information that there was just no way that we could put it all into a 50-minute segment.
Right. So let's get to that, because you are a great example of that, Braxton. 2 things that you said that I think would be important to reflect back to your audience. One is that you're getting to one of your dreams, one of your aspirations, an intention you have that if you don't complete this, there's a part of your life that feels like a raisin instead of this juicy grape, right?
Yeah.
So this thing needed to come forward through you, and it's the priority for now to get to, but it's a side hustle sort of thing too. So you could always just say, well, I didn't have time for it, and then 5 years later find out that the dream was never met, never accomplished. And that does something to our soul. So I'm hearing that even though you don't feel like you've perfected focus management, and I don't know if any of us ever leave life feeling that way, because we live in a very fluid, dynamic world. And as soon as we turn our back, there's a new piece of technology or something else that becomes a priority. For instance, this year in the United States, many people have turned back to caring about what their politicians are doing, where in the past we may have just glided by thinking that the status quo was fine. So the world is going to be dynamic. It's going to change. We've had some things happen in climate and weather conditions that have really made us wake up and say we need to have priorities in other places. So even though we may get our focus management down in some places, it's one of the reasons that I built what I built. Is it's a continual means of finding ways to manage your focus. And I'm not going to dictate to you a planning system. I'm not going to dictate to you a time management methodology. I'm going to share strategies, and that's what I share on the Be Focused course and also in the coaching program. Is that if we give you strategies, you can create your own program. And I would encourage parents to listen today, take 1 or 2 things, or those of you who are interested in having these important dialogues, these conversations that make a difference. It's a matter of finding time. And then when we get into the second part, it's a matter of how you prime yourself for that time. So we'll start with the time.
Yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah, let's jump into it. We're going to do this right in the raw here while we're here, and you guys are going to listen to this. And then if you like the exercises, we'll make them available on Braxton's show notes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have the this first one that I see you're pulling out is the Today, Not Today.
Well, let's go first to the focus simulation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so I'm going to ask those of you who are listening, this is a time for you to, if you're in the car, pause and come back to the podcast, or choose to listen in and come back and do this exercise. But if you want it to be at its pristine, most fresh version, stop listening, come back when you can sit down and do what I'm going to walk Braxton's to.
Yeah, we're going interactive on Birds and Bees.
Yes, here we are, interactive. So Braxton has a notebook in front of him. And Braxton, would you consider drawing 3 columns and dividing one of those pages into 3 columns? And so he's doing a rectangular sort of structure, and he'll divide it with 3 columns running vertically. And the first one on the left, would you write down 1, 2, 3? That's the name of that column.
1, 2, 3.
Yes, and we're going to use the Arabic numbers 1, 2, 3. We're going to work up to 12, but just that 1, 2, 3 at the top of that column, gives us the title of what we're going to be doing in that column. In the middle column, let's write January to December, and you can write Jan dot to December, period. So you can abbreviate, or you can choose when we go through the exercise to write each of the months out with a full word. And then the last column is ABC. And we'll be going through the alphabet. We'll be doing the first 12 letters of the alphabet. And if I'm correct, I think we'll end up on L. We'll see here. So those of you who are drawing this, also in the show notes, Braxton will have a simulation worksheet that we've had, that we give to our clients in this simulation when they go through Be Focused. So you're kind of getting a free piece of our content.
Sweet.
We'll talk to you later about why we're doing it and what you're going to learn from it. And if you learn something different from your exercise than Braxton did, you're doing it right. If you learn something exactly as he learned it, just like he learned it, you're doing it correct as well. You can't do this wrong. You can just choose not to do it. So I'm going to grab my timer, and I'm going to be timing you, and you'll want to time yourself if you're doing this at home. The time is not, let me repeat, the time is not the focus here. I'm using the timer so that Braxton will have a frame of reference, a measurement to be able to eye what happened in exercise 1 versus what happened in exercise 2. So we're just using it as a bit of a rubric to give us an idea of where you were in exercise 1 versus exercise 2. So the time has nothing to do with it. And I give that caveat because a lot of you will be conditioned. We get so conditioned, especially in our Western world here in the United States, of competition and being first. There is no competition here. So when I say go, what Braxton's going to do and what you'll want to do is you're going to fill out one item in each column, moving from left to right. So the first thing he would do when I say go is he'll write the number 1. And he'll write it as a number. Then he'll move to the middle column, and what will you write there?
Is that January?
January. And you can write Jan, period, or January. And then you'll bounce over to the far column in the right, and you'll write
the ABC.
And just write A to start with, and then come back to the number column and write 2.
Then, holy cow, February.
Yes. And then?
This is going to be hard. And then I go to B.
B, yes. So take your time, breathe, and just notice what's happening inside your mind and your body as you do this. Just be aware. All we're doing in this little exercise is simulating a part of your life, and you'll get to tell us which part of your life later. I have no idea which one you'll match it to. I promise it will match to something that you're doing.
And I'm already feeling the tension of my my competitive side, the adrenaline pumping. Like, I'm going to do this the fastest.
I got to do it.
I'm going to beat everyone. You guys tell me what your time was. But we're not doing it for time. We're not doing it for time. Big breath.
But we do have to say that competition and that need to compete can be strong in some of you, and others of you won't care about. So just notice that. That's a good thing to observe, because sometimes that's actually an indication of how you're using your time, how you're spending time in your conversations. It may even have some sexual implications in that part of your life too.
Totally.
All right. When you're ready, set, go. So I'm watching Braxton. He's written 1 January A, and now he's moved on to 2 February B. And I'll stay really quiet while he continues until he gets to the number 12, and until he's written December, and he's completed the 12th letter of the alphabet.
Okay.
Done. That took you 1 minute and 1 second.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
Yeah. Now, aside from knowing that about the time, because that's just an indicator, and go ahead and write down 1 minute, 1 second on your paper. So we know that the first time through, when we were jumping from column 1 2-3 to January to December to ABC. That was your time. What did you experience inside yourself when you were asked to jump from one task to another?
Oh, yeah, my chest was tight because I got to 1 January A and I was like, super easy. I totally got this. And then 2 February B, I was like, I already said that. Then I got 3 to March to C. And then after that, I was like, 4. 4 is April, and then April into D. What comes after D? I even wrote C for E after D because I started going all over the place.
Okay.
Which started bringing up more tension inside my chest.
Right.
Because I wanted to get it done faster. And I would start writing different things.
Whoop, there's our timer. Prematurely, sorry about that. So you felt pressure because
I wanted to get all of it done as fast as possible, but jumping in between there, it's like I had to switch brains.
You really did. And so we're proving to you a number of things. What did you teach yourself before I mention some things that are pretty classic and pretty universal for people when they go through this? What did you learn?
What did I learn prior to all this?
Well, what did you learn as you went through it? What are you teaching yourself?
The one thing that went through my mind as well is that I got the months of the year and going, okay, well, 6 is June. So I think that I went a little bit faster knowing that I can do numbers that way.
So you started to see a pattern,
yes,
which helped in your speed, which speed seemed to, even though we said it's not about speed, you still use that as a measurement for your own satisfaction.
Yeah, so I started to be able to change some of the ways that I was thinking, but I couldn't do that with A, B, and C because I don't know that the 12th letter is L or that the 11th or 7th letter is G. I didn't learn it that way.
Right. Did you find yourself using the alphabet song in your head?
No, actually, yes, I did because I went D, C, A, B, C, D, C, no, C, D, E. F, yeah.
Okay, so you went back to some repetition when it got to the alphabet. So you could see a pattern between the numbers and the months, but it was harder when we had to go from the months to the letters of the alphabet.
And then even from the letters of the alphabet back to the numbers.
Back to the numbers. So a lot of us do this when we multitask, and we think that we can multitask, but we can prove through neuroscience that it's impossible to multitask. What we're doing is fracturing our focus, and we're going from one thing to another thing to another thing, which can cause anxiety in us.
It's impossible to do.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes. And so you can focus on something, and then you have to pull out of that train of thought and jump to another train and get on that train of thought, figure out where you are, complete that task, and then jump to another train, figure out where you are, complete that task, you go back to the first. So in some ways, you may get a dopamine rush of, completed that, go to the next, and I'm moving forward.
Because it feels good.
Because it feels good to say, okay, I'm getting a lot accomplished.
Oh, I love that feeling.
Yes. And at the same time, though, you mention things that make me wonder if your body was creating more cortisol, more adrenaline, and more testosterone.
Oh, I was feeling adrenaline.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And so this puts us in a place more in the reptilian mode of thought and not in the executive part of the brain, not in our heart, and not in a full function of the enteric or the gut brain. So we're really not our most sovereign and conversationally intelligent individual inside of ourselves when we're breaking up our focus this way. Now, we also know that we lose 24% of our productivity at least every time we jump from one thing to another because you noticed you had to go back and say, where am I? So 24% of our productivity when we jump from one thing to another. And I can imagine that people listening to this podcast that you've created, Braxton, would not want to have a meeting with their children or have a sexual discussion or have an important conversation about feelings and needs and intimacy at the rate of 24% productivity. So one of the things I'm hoping that we're starting to see from this is if we're going to be there and we're going to be in that conversation, then let's make sure we have that single focus. And let's let you feel what that's like.
So be there mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yes, and plan it and then follow through on it. Now, you might not do everything you need to in that one conversation, but what we're looking for is doing more of what you want to do in the conversation and less of all the other stuff you could be thinking of while you're in the conversation.
Okay.
So
maintaining a present moment.
A present moment, a present sense. And if you have the cortisol, if you're jumping around from topic to topic, or you're jumping into these conversations and then out to other things, like I'm making dinner and then we're going to quickly have this conversation and then we're going to go to a family gathering. You can imagine how fractured you might feel, and you have those butterflies that you had and that adrenaline. The people around you can pick up on that. So what if they? Yes. So if they're bonded to you, and they're even within 10 feet of you, even more so, they're going to feel what you're feeling and start to mirror that. So now we already have tension around the conversation that you planned to have because you weren't fully present.
Which can already be coming up because sexual conversations can feel uncomfortable. We're kind of trained to feel that this is an uncomfortable topic to even address. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So we're just adding to it if we're trying to fracture.
Yes. So let's let you experience something that maybe teaches you even more. Let's redraw these columns. We're going to do this whole exercise over again. And so those of you who are using the worksheet that we provided for Braxton, you go ahead and print off another copy. And this time we're going to let you do 1 through 12 before you jump to January through December. And when you finish the January to December column, we'll go to the ABCs and you'll just go in sequence. So even though we're not taking on all the numbers in the world, we're only taking 1 year worth of months. And we're also just doing 12 of the letters of the ABCs. We're chunking it down so we have a nice bite-sized chunk of accomplishment per column. But we're asking you to finish the column before you go to the next column. And let's see what kind of difference you have in your presence, in your neurochemistry, somatically. How do you experience this differently?
Gotcha.
Okay, so are you ready?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
All right, let's go. And he's already finished with the Arabic 1, 2, 3 up to 12. And he's finished with the months.
All right.
Okay, he's finished. So that took you 33 seconds.
Cut it in half.
Yes. And what did you experience internally as you completed it this time with more of a focus?
I saw that there was, well, I didn't have the same adrenaline rush to it. I think that first one that we were doing is when you're like, okay, do this, then go to January and ABC. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that, but I can totally do it. I can go real quick and I can get them all. And this one's like, oh yeah, piece of cake. ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3, all that.
Awesome. So if you could teach yourself something about productivity or about how to focus or being present, what are the lessons you just taught yourself?
That staying on the same task is a lot easier. I could get into my flow of the ABC song, or I could count to 12. The months, it wasn't difficult to go from one month to another. I can work through all that. I think the main part was those middle stages where I don't really see them all the time. January, February, March, April, May. Okay, cool, I've got that. And if I had to start at May, then it's like, okay, May, June, July, August, September. And you have to get into a pattern. Same with the ABCs, especially the ABCs. Starting at E, F, G. If I don't start at H, I, J, like where it kind of has that bump in the song, it's really difficult for me.
Okay, so this seems like it was smoother. You were more present. And even when you were more present and we bite-sized chunked it, made it so you didn't have distractions, you still had to push through each column.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were giving advice to parents or other people who want to have these crucial conversations that hold a lot of meaning for themselves and for the person they're talking to, what did you just learn from this exercise that assists you to guide them as a therapist or as just another human being?
I think it brings in the conversation that I have with Kristen Hodson, and we'll have her on Birds and Bees at some point in time too. But she talks about s'more conversations. And we're like, oh, s'mores, those are really yummy. Well, we want them to be yummy, but s'more means that there's always some more to talk about. So if you go into a conversation and your child, your goal is to talk to them about what the female and male genitalia purpose is, or just that they have their certain genitalia, or you're talking about consensual sex. You can choose a specific topic that you like to talk about and keep that on a place of that topic versus if you get in and start talking, then they're like, well, what about this? And then you jump over to that topic, but you still aren't finished with this topic. And then you start chasing.
Right.
It's going to become quite a scary conversation if you aren't sure where the conversation is going.
Right.
And in this case, you can always say, that is a really great question. That's a smart question. And we can always have more of a conversation later. Let's talk about that, tomorrow. Or, hey, let's talk about that after I really I'm excited about this piece. Let's stay with this. And you can help control that conversation and know that they have a question about something else, and you can go research it, or you can always prepare yourself, and you don't have to follow the flow of the conversation that you haven't planned for.
That's beautiful. So can I segue off of that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So watching you say this, such wisdom that you are imparting to your constituents who listen to this podcast. Notice that we broke it down. We didn't do all the numbers of that were possible. We didn't go to infinity. We just went to a dozen. So we had a focus point. So we made it a bite-sized, doable chunk. And tomorrow, if we were going to come back to this, we know what would come next because we've kind of mapped it. The same with the calendar, months, and also the letters. We just did it at 1 year and just 12 letters. So when you have these conversations, you may want to have an idea of what your intention is, and then check when you finished if you had that impact by actually writing it out. Like what I've been having Braxton do is write some things down so he has a map so he can come back and know where he's going. And sometimes as parents or as partners, if we'll just take some paper and pencil and say, let's draw out, let's visually think, where did we go today? What did we talk about? What did we agree upon? So you're kind of in discovery, and then you map out, okay, what did we discover today, and where are we, and what would be some things we want to discuss next time? And if things come up during the week, maybe you have this consistent method of meeting and talking, and then you can say, well, today we're just talking about the middle column. We're going to talk about a new topic, and we may tie them together in the future, but for today, let's just focus on this. We become far more productive, more focused, more present, and we give off the hormonal cues to the other person that they're safe, we're in this competent, caring place, and we're going to cover something, we're going to talk about it, we're going to have more dialogue. Is that useful?
Oh, very much so. And as you're saying that, what comes to mind as well is when I work with couples, whenever couples tend to want to talk about a serious topic, finances, a problem in the relationship, things along those lines, they bring up, hey, I want to have this conversation. Well, that conversation starts into one conversation, then someone says something that jumps into another conversation that's another issue within the relationship, that jumps to another one, that jumps to another one. And so then couples begin to fight about 4 things, and they want to resolve 4 issues all within the space of 30 minutes or an hour or even 10 minutes sometimes. And it doesn't allow, you're setting yourself up to fail in a conversation and get just really intense.
You're trying to multitask. And how can you accomplish much without having even more anxiety? And also parents, if you're listening, or partners that want to schedule time, making sure that you understand and define what you're going to be doing and when you're going to do it. So we defined what you were going to do. We defined when you were going to start and when you were going to stop. And sometimes it's really helpful just to clear space. And that kind of segues to our next focus management tool that we can talk about, the today and not today of, okay, instead of fracturing yourself in your attention, which again, we'll talk more about in the CIQ section of how to prime yourself for these conversations, you'll want to clear off space, give it a column, a channel, a map on your life plan. And let's just talk about, okay, so what's another tool we can use? If the first tool is a simulation to kind of help you teach yourself something about how you're currently using your focus and how you're currently multitasking or being able to be present, the second tool is one of the most ground level grassroots things that human beings that are really successful, competent, satisfied, have high emotional intelligence do over and over, and that is they do some form of daily planning. And that's the place to start. The first thing is to schedule it.
Schedule that daily planning.
Yeah, schedule 5 to 10 minutes, and people can go onto our website. We're starting to have these frequent 5-day challenges where we show you how do I start my day so that I have this sense of sovereign stillness within me, that I treat myself extremely well, and I start the day as strong as possible before I even do my planning. Mm-hmm. So that's coming up. So people could go onto our website, soulsalt.com, and find how to register for our free 5-day challenge that will teach them that. Mm-hmm. This is just a tiny piece of that, which is start scheduling some daily planning time, and it only needs to take 2 to 5 minutes. You'll get so good at it, it will take less than 30 seconds down the road. But the tool that we use is today, not today. And so the idea is to not make lists. I know a lot of you may be trembling now. I love my list, and there's a good reason why you do. When you complete something, like writing your list, you get a false positive. You get a hit of dopamine. Yes, I just completed something. But the truth is, all you did was complete making a list. All those things on the list are still static and dormant. There's no dynamic movement in them. They're on a list, and maybe chances are you have several lists tucked in different notebooks and different scraps of paper.
Oh, that is so, Post-it notes of just like, man, Post-it notes of dopamine hits everywhere.
Yes.
Just like, yes, I finished my list and I know what I have to do. Dang it.
Yes. So what I would say is use the Post-it notes or use this little grid that we have. There's a 2-step in the today and not today. And with this, the show notes and this handout will also send you a little video so people can take their own tutorial and know how to do this. But let me just kind of talk about it. The first thing that we want to do is use divergent thinking, which is a powerful mode of thinking that we have where we think of all the things, all the many things, all the variety of things, the different things that are pounding maybe our prefrontal cortex or maybe our neocortex or in the back of the mind, sort of wiggling back there saying, pay attention to me, put me on that list. And instead of putting them on the list, you put one thing per sticky note. And the reason we are using sticky notes is so you don't get a false positive. When you put something on a sticky note and you do a brainstorm for 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds, you start to think of all the things that you could pack into the day. And once you get them out of your head, you have this wonderful sense of what happens when light comes out up over the horizon during the day, and you can start to see depth perception. Whereas if you are snowboarding or jogging or biking or hiking, when the sunshine is not out, it's really hard to know if that dark thing right in front of your foot is a manhole or a new piece of tarmac or a crevasse, or if it's just a shadow from something. And so you have to be very cautious if you have no light as to how do I step forward. However, if you have the light of day, as you would give to yourself when you brainstorm, put everything out in front of you, now you can sort through it because you've done the divergent thinking and converge down to the 1, 2, or 3 things that are critical for the day. And then you schedule those things. If they take longer than 5 or 15 minutes, schedule them. Give them an estimated amount of time, put them in your calendar, and then stick to that plan 80 to 90% of the time. And the reason I'm saying that is we don't believe in perfection here at Soul Salt. We think that's a myth and a trap. So if you set yourself up to say, look, if I plan my day and I complete 80%, about 80% of the time of what I plan to do and when I plan to do it, I'm going to be in the top 10, if not top 5% of people in my field or who are around me who's actually accomplishing what I said I really want to focus on.
So, and that involves saying no, too.
Yes, so talk to that because you've learned that.
When it comes to saying no, like that's probably one of the hardest things for me to go over because that involves saying, oh, you know what, I'm not creating time for that. Or someone saying, oh, this needs to be done. Or, someone says, hey, I need you to write this article or I need you to do this. And immediately what I want to do is, yes, that's exciting. Let's do it. And I'll do it right now, even though I had all these other things. And I just push everything that I've planned or that I was planning on doing aside. And without saying no, all of a sudden it just you're just catching waves as they come in versus being very intentional with your time.
Right.
That's just what my experience has been. But it's been hard to tell people like, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be answering my phone for the next 15 minutes because I'm putting it all in this. Or I'm going to turn my phone on silent, or I'm going to, have no notifications so it doesn't distract my brain from what I'm doing right now. Because if I don't necessarily enjoy what I'm doing 100%, like I'm not snowboarding, my brain wants distractions.
Right. Yeah. So your brain is wanting that dopamine. It's wanting an adrenaline rush. It wants to be occupied.
I love those dopamine coins.
Yes.
They feel so good.
They feel so good. And you're not alone. There's so many of us that want to look at a screen or play our games, and we want to get that good feeling inside of us. And that could be a false positive because the things that really matter more may not be accomplished. I have a friend who just told me that during the summer she logged in 178 hours of Netflix. And she says, now I'm going to stop watching Netflix and I'm going to do 178 hours of hiking, working out, gardening, other things, and I'm going to learn how to log in the things that are really important to me. So it's very, very easy in today's world to be sucked into a distraction, and yet our relationships, the quality of those relationships, the stories that we tell together that have ripple effects into our future and into our present moment with one another, they may never find time in our schedule if we just keep saying someday. Because if you look at someday, it never shows up on a calendar. It just shows up in really bad intentions. So the today and not today is a way to just start taking one step at a time. And that's the first thing, is schedule some time to do your daily planning. And then you can use our tool for free. Braxton's going to send it to you. And try this. And the idea is this is a strategy to either adapt and make into your own system, or adopt it completely and use the system. We also have the Today and Not Today app that follows this very sequence. You can do it with paper. So if you're very tactile, very kinesthetic, you're going to do it with paper. If you like to have the electronic because it's on your phone and that's where you lead your day and that's where you go back to your, what was the critical today item for today, you go there. And the whole reason I think we're talking about this, Braxton, is you have people who want to have these deep conversations, but until we manage our focus around how we're going to talk about it, when we're going to talk about it, and the fact that we're very present when we talk about it, it doesn't happen. So it's a combination of managing our focus and scheduling these things that are our priorities.
And a part of that, I would add, is learning about it too. That's a big reason I have the Birds and Bees podcast, is because most parents I've talked to have said, I don't know what to say. I don't know enough about blank. And I want to give people the ability to learn about certain topics so that they feel comfortable to set up this time and to feel competent in talking about a specific subject or to know where to go.
So somebody might study a topic and then they might go to another topic. Think of our 1, 2, 3, ABC, and then they might go to another topic and they might actually schedule time to study, to get advice, to prepare before they actually have the conversation. So that would be really wise. And here's another thing that helps people determine how to lead with their focus, and that is to determine what their core value system is. At Soul Salt, we call it your plumb line or your be true system. You have a lot of people through your life that tell you, be true to yourself. Well, our system shows you how do you do that. And that's a free online course that you can take called Be True. And so we'll give you the link to that as well. But here's really why knowing these values can help you prioritize what you do, because you use them as your guides. And there's a book called The Nature of Human Values that say that these values are these enduring beliefs. And what I've come to find out is they're enduring traits, enduring aspects and elements of who we are deep in our identity that have always been guiding our behaviors. And things where we've taken a stand for ourselves, or traits we've noticed in somebody else that we really admire or emulated or want to emulate, those are usually parts of this plumb line that goes through the neurons in the prefrontal lobes into the heart. The heart has between 40 and 200,000 neural networks.
Whoa.
And the gut, the enteric brain that starts at the back of your throat and goes to your back door, has millions. So we have billions of these neural networks in our head, thousands in our heart, millions in our gut. And when you line those up and sync those up through being facilitated with some questions, you actually find out what matters most to you. And those are what we call core values, or again at Soul Salt, your Be True system, your plumb line, an inner plumb line, something that helps you stay square with yourself, that helps you build a life that will always engage, flow, and keep you in your integrity. And in the book, Leadership Challenge, they did a lot of research on the role of values in leadership. And the research showed that to be clear about your own values is the best route to having loyalty and commitment in companies, in organizations, and in families.
And what was that book called?
It's called The Leadership Challenge. And the reason is that their research showed, and they did this in companies, I've seen the same thing happen in families, that employees or family members who are clear about their own things that they value, their own values, are most committed to the organization because they make their choices based on principle. So if they have knowledge of their own inner principles, they'll make decisions based on principles that now assist the organization, the family, the company to move forward because we have principle-based leadership coming from the individuals.
So this is where your value system lines up with, if you're wanting your child to wait to have sex before marriage, then this is a value that you can instill as long as you're having the conversations about it.
Yes, and I will add to that, chances are that your children may have their own values that you have not taught them. That they may come in and have a different set of values. But if you honor their values, they can show how they attach to the community that they're living in. For instance, the data shows that those employees who understood their own values made sure that they were clear also about what the organization valued because somebody valued them first.
So when you value your children and their values, and you express what your values are, there is a mutual understanding and feeling.
There's at least this camaraderie of you believe in this, I believe in this is what's important to you, this is what's important to me, and then you can set a family context for what are our values. Mm-hmm. How do these individual I am this person join into how are we a unit? Mm-hmm. And there's this shared value between the organization and individuals that can make significant and positive difference in their attitudes and performance. So if you can, and companies who follow this have huge marginal gains in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Imagine a family who allows children to discern and discover, and now some children are going to be way too small to know this.
Yeah.
But after a while, the child, and you'll have to discern this per family, when can my child identify their core values? And then you can take them out and walk them through the course. Mm-hmm. And when they finish, they know that plumb line. And then you can talk about, okay, based on your core values, what kind of decisions do you feel would be wisest for you to stay in your integrity when it comes to when to be sexually active, how to treat members of the sex and the gender that you are attracted to? Mm-hmm. So you start to see that you're helping them build their moral code from the inside out
versus the outside in.
Yes. And so this is another place to start. If you want to manage your focus here first. This is a starting ground. Know your values, let them find theirs, come together and maybe discover, maybe you even have separate than family values. Maybe you have values around sexual conduct. Mm-hmm.
And it sounds a lot like this. The way that you're putting it is making me think of when you're forcing someone with your value system that brings on rebellion and disrespect. Whereas if you're helping someone start their values on the inside out, that innately involves you respecting the child or you respecting your partner and allowing them to express what's going on, which creates intimacy, which creates emotional connection and respect. Respect on both parts.
Right. So if you can imagine, if you're always dictating this is how we do it, and there's no dialogue and conversation, you're in a tell and ask dialogue that then makes people skeptical, judgmental, and often critical of the thing you're saying. Mm. If you are inclusive, you partner with them, you're doing exploration, and you're having conversations to join and transform the future, then you are coming from a place where you're in the prefrontal lobes, you're in the executive functions of your brain, your best thinking, innovative, creative, most empathic and compassionate. Mm-hmm. You drop into the heart where there's compassion, connection, relations, and values. You go to the gut where there is courage to take action or not, mm-hmm. to motivate yourself to stay in touch with your deep identity. And all of a sudden you have the best of each person showing up. And from there, you can create a whole new set of activities, conversations, and behaviors that maybe haven't even been expressed in any other family.
This is all like, as you're explaining all this is all new information because as I see what what we normally expect parents, or what parents through the media or whatever is supposed to be portrayed, or how it's been portrayed for years, has been, you're my child, you respect me. Or you are my partner and I need to be respected, so you respect me. Versus stepping into allowing a child a voice, or allowing your partner a voice, and sticking to it and allowing them to be collaborative. And that's so hard. It's hard to have a 12-year-old be like, I want to stay out all night, or a 16-year-old do that. And you say, wow, that's interesting. Like, you value staying out all night and we value you being home at midnight or 11, and having a collaborative voice versus, no, you know, I'm the dad or I'm the mom and you will be home at this time. And if not, there is this consequence, which, you know, you need to have boundaries.
You need to have boundaries. Parents, you know, I've raised 3 children and they have broken curfew. They have broken other rules. They have done all sorts of things that they learned some of the hard ways. You know, and this is a thing for parents to understand. Our children are going to do as well as our relationship with them does. They're going to make mistakes. You know, I had a child get drunk and need to go to the emergency room with alcohol poisoning when there was a rule about no drinking. You know, sexual activity that you find out later was going on. So you have these rules where, you know, I literally drove children to the store and we bought condoms. So you will have to have your rules, because as a parent, you have a stewardship and an obligation of bringing these children forward through your family. And you need to keep them safe and protected. That's, you know, premier in your mind.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, you start to have conversations that honor them, so that at some point, when you know that they're going to be on their own, they're equipped to either talk to you about, okay, I blew it and here's what happened, or I didn't and I'm honest about it and it came close and that was scary, or no, I'm good. This is where I am, and you can have more trust. So, yeah, so we're probably ready to go to the conversational intelligence.
I think so. I think we're automatically moving that way. So, at this point in time, we're gonna hit, you know, pause on it, and we're going to next week. I'm not gonna wait for a bi-weekly one. I'm gonna release both of these on a weekly basis, just so we have them back to back. Yeah, tune in for the next episode with Lyn, as we talk about conversational IQ and how to develop these conversations with whoever you're talking to, your partner, your children, and continuing to explore your best plannings. Thank you for listening. This has been another episode of the Birds and Bees podcast. This is a bi-weekly show where we cover sexual topics, and it's a sex-positive education to help couples and parents develop relationships with their kids and each other through healthy conversation and correct education. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving a review on iTunes, and also head on over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/birdsandbees, and leave us a like. All of this helps us reach to more and more people to get the information that we share to everybody. You can also check out our newly made birdsandbeespodcast.com to find out a little bit more about the show and about the host, Braxton Dutson. And you can also call us at 385-449-1818. Love to hear your comments, something that helped, something that you'd like to hear in future episodes. Like to hear from those who are listening. So thank you again. We appreciate you being a part of The Hive.